Tibuli tribe is one of the most culturally rich indigenous groups in the Philippines, primarily located in Lake Cebu, South Cotabato, and the Sacsayhuaman region of Mindanao. For generations, they have lived in close harmony with nature, depending on the land not only for food and shelter, but also for their spiritual beliefs and cultural identity. One of their most well-known traditions is the sacred tinalak weaving, a unique art form made from abaca fibers. The intricate patterns of the tinalak are believed to be revealed through dreams, making each piece deeply meaningful and spiritually significant. Among the most respected Tivoli Master Weavers are Lang Dulay and Salinta Monon, both of whom were honored as National Living Treasures, also known as Gamaba Awardees, for their dedication to preserving indigenous weaving traditions. The beauty of Tivoli culture is celebrated every year during the Tinalak Festival in South Cotabato, which highlights their artistry and heritage. However, behind these vibrant traditions lies a serious challenge: the ongoing struggle of the Tivoli people to protect and defend their ancestral lands. Tivoli people are facing a serious problem of land grabbing and ancestral domain conflict, where outsiders such as settlers, corporations, and developers occupy or claim indigenous lands without proper consents. This issue started intensifying when outside groups entered Tivoli territory for agriculture, mining, tourism, and commercial projects, leading to the loss of their farms, forests, water sources, and sacred spaces. The main problem is the violation of the ancestral lands, rights, and the weakening protection of indigenous territories.
Principal injury siya na sa demolition, malicious mischief, tsaka yung stated murder, pero nasa prosecutor pa rin po ang final say kung ano pong i-resolve nila.
Ang TLD pagdagan ako na gipusilmin nila ako ang naigo.
Gipanghibakak sa kagawad ang aligasyon na ako no siya didto kay duna kunoy nangayo og tabang kay giilugan og yuta.
Wala ko kabalo sa kuan sa mga pusil.
Nasayrang dugay na kuno ang bangi sa yuta sa mong lugar nga gikalimbigitan ni kagawad at tindido.
Alam mo pag sa gobyerno kasi pag yung bini-OS mo na yung lupa mo, it means to say you're surrendering it, bayaran ka ng gobyerno, bayaran ka ng land bank, and then yung mga beneficiary mo ibigay mo doon sa kanila.
Kasong illegal possession of firearms, malicious mischief ug frustrated murder ang atubangon sa kagawad ug mga kaubang akusado. Ako, si Cyril Chavez para sa One Mindanao.
Television reports have highlighted this as an ongoing conflict that threatens the Tivoli's identity and survival. A tragic case linked to this issue is the 2017 killing of tribal leader Dato Victor Danyan and members of his community while defending their land rights, which drew national attention to the dangers faced by indigenous leaders.
Causes of the problem. We have several factors contribute to this issue. Economic factors play a major role because of companies often see ancestral land as valuable for mining, tourism, plantation, and business development. Because of the potential for profit, indigenous rights are sometimes overlooked or ignored. Political factors also contribute as some government agencies approve projects without fully consulting the affected communities. In many cases, indigenous groups report that their voices are only considered after decisions have already been made. Social factors have also worsened the problem, as migration from other areas had led outsiders to settle on land traditionally owned by the Tiboli. Legal challenges continue to make the situation more difficult. Although indigenous communities have legal rights to their ancestral domains, many still struggle to obtain official landowner documents without formal recognition. Their ancestral land remain vulnerable to outside claims and development.
Effects on the community. The impact of land conflict affects every part of Tiboli life. One major effect is the loss of livelihood, as many families lost access to farms, fishing areas, and forest resources that provide food and income for their daily needs. This creates serious threats to both food security and financial stability within the community. Land conflict also causes cultural loss because sacred sites may be destroyed, and traditional practices that are closely connected to the land begin to disappear over time. Environmental damage is another consequence, as land conversion often leads to deforestation, soil erosion, and water pollution that harm the natural environment that Tivoli depend on. There are safety risks for those who defend their ancestral land. Community leaders who speak out often face harassment, threats, and violence, and in some cases, some have even paid with their lives.
The National Commission on Indigenous Peoples is the government agency responsible for protecting the rights of indigenous peoples in the Philippines. It handles ancestral domain claims, issues certificates of ancestral domain titles, resolves land disputes, and ensures free, prior, and informed consent before any projects enter indigenous lands. These protections are supported by the Indigenous Peoples' Rights Act of 1997, which guarantees indigenous peoples rights to land, self-governance, social justice, and cultural integrity. However, for the Tiboli, enforcement is often difficult due to slow legal processes, untitled ancestral lands, overlapping in classifications, and conflicting claims. To address these issues, NGOs and government agencies like the National Commission on Indigenous Peoples and DENR assist indigenous communities by providing legal support, conducting land surveys, and helping secure land titles. The Tiboli also actively protect their rights through tribal councils, customary conflict resolution, education of younger generations, and community actions against illegal land occupation. When disputes cannot be settled locally, they are brought to barangay officials and then to the National Commission on Indigenous Peoples for formal resolution.
Several realistic solutions can help address this issue. In the short term, the government can improve the faster processing of ancestral land titles so indigenous communities can secure legal ownership of their land. Stronger law enforcement is also needed to ensure that laws protecting indigenous rights are properly implemented. The better protection must be provided by tribal leaders who often face threats for defending their communities. For long-term solutions, indigenous voices should be included in development planning so that projects affecting ancestral land cannot be moved forward without meaningful consultation.
Our group realized that land is more than just soil. For the Tiboli, land is memory because it holds their stories, beliefs, and identity. When indigenous communities lose their land, they do not only lose physical space, they lose a part of themselves. We should care because indigenous struggles are part of our national story. Protecting indigenous rights means protecting the culture, soul of the Philippines.